Justin Trudeau is wildly unpopular in Canada, and Canada is shifting more and more to the right wing. We are seeing obvious changes throughout the country, obvious changes in tone and what people are okay with. But the interesting thing is we are now seeing global coverage about Canada and how Trudeau is so unpopular. He used to get favorable coverage all the time. They used to give him the benefit of the doubt. Oh, he's a rock star. They are now catching on that he is an absolute nerd and the Canadians are done with him. So in today's video, we have a global channel talking about Canada and Trudeau, what's going on, how we're shifting to the right wing. I thought I brought up some interesting points. Stick around to the end of the video. It was a good watch. They did a good job, especially because they're not from Canada. Let's get into it.
Been the face of Canadian politics for nearly a decade. Since his election in 2015, Trudeau has defeated 3 Conservative Party leaders and developed an
To be fair, 2 of those nerds sucked.
affable reputation abroad, and most non-Canadians probably assume Trudeau is a relatively popular politician domestically. But in Canada, Trudeau is a far more controversial figure. Trudeau's net approval rating is -32, the lowest in his tenure, and his Liberal Party are now polling at just 23%, 20 points behind the main opposition, the Canadian Conservatives. 338 Canada, a Canadian statistical model of electoral projections, is currently projecting the Conservatives will win about 210 seats at the next election, well above the 172 seats needed for a majority government, and potentially one of the largest governing coalitions in Canadian history.
So for what it's worth, I just saw a poll recently and it showed that the Liberals could do poor enough where they might actually be in 4th place, which would be nuts. It was like Conservatives and Bloc, NDP, and then Liberals. And I was like, wow, that would be wild to see.
So in this video, we're going to explain why Trudeau is unpopular within Canada, how the Conservatives are gaining steam, and whether there's anything Trudeau and the Liberals can do about it. So why is Trudeau unpopular? Well, like many leaders, the economy plays a huge role. Canada's growth came in below expectations in Q1 of 2024, and while Canada isn't technically in a recession, polling suggests as many as 2/3 of Canadians are feeling that the country and the economy are on the wrong track.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about it in other videos, and you guys have commented down below. People who are applying for jobs right now are just not getting results. People are losing jobs. We're hearing all these stories. Again, share any stories or stuff that helps us kind of learn what's going on the ground floor in the comments below. But the other thing is, Canada's not technically in a recession because we keep pumping in all these immigrants and it hides that we are absolutely in a recession. Our GDP is still flat. No, it's not. GDP per capita is down.
Like many other incumbents, Trudeau is struggling with the aftermath of COVID and the subsequent inflationary spike. But Trudeau has come under particular criticism from the Conservatives for a couple of specific policy failures. The first is the carbon tax, a tax levied on the carbon content of fuels, which aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and encourage consumers to use more green alternatives. Since its inception in 2019, the tax has steadily increased from $20 per tonne of carbon in 2019 to $85 in 2024.
Isn't that so crazy?
When it was implemented in 2019, the majority of Canadians supported it. But
No, okay. First of all, I hate that they always say that. The majority of Canadians supported the carbon tax. No, the majority of Canadians never supported the carbon tax. Majority of Canadians were indifferent to the carbon tax. That's the big difference, because yeah, they were going, oh yeah, whatever, another tax, if it's good for the environment, whatever. It was a real whatever. It wasn't like, we need it, we want to do the carbon tax like that. It wasn't supporting to it.
Now, with the cost of living biting, it's become more controversial. The Conservatives have also effectively attacked Trudeau for failing to ameliorate Canada's housing crisis. For context, Canada has had a severe housing shortage for a long time, particularly in cities like Vancouver and Toronto. While explaining Canada's housing crisis would probably require a whole other video, the TLDR is that Canada has some of the most expensive housing in the world, and while the precise causes are disputed, Trudeau has failed to fix it during his 9 years in power.
not only failed to fix it, he has made it so much worse. I'm a real estate agent in London, Ontario. Reach out to me in the link below if you want to meet my team all the way across Canada. But the reason I bring that up is because I was a real estate investor first. I bought my first property at 23 with a basic job working for a company that did uniforms and facility services. It was an entry-level job. It was a company who did uniforms and facility services. I bought my first property on a single income because you could still buy affordable houses. And that was only like, 2016, 2017. And I was just a young guy buying a house that I wanted to get into as my first property. And I was able to do that on a single income. And that was very early in Justin Trudeau's tenure. So he didn't fail to fix. He made it worse. It's a Trudeau problem almost exclusively because housing as recent as 2016, honestly, as recent as 2019, housing was still considered affordable in majority of cities outside of Toronto and Vancouver across Canada.
Trudeau has also suffered a string of scandals in the past few years.
Yep.
Back in 2019, Canada's Ethics Commissioner concluded that Trudeau had improperly interfered with an investigation into Canadian contractor SNC-Lavalin and its ties to the Gaddafi regime in Libya. Then,
I don't want to comment on SNC-Lavalin because I don't want to get murdered, but they've got a lot of stuff going on.
During the pandemic, Trudeau was accused of using WE Charity, an international youth charity, to benefit himself and his family through speaking fees. A scandal which ultimately resulted in the resignation of Trudeau's finance minister, Bill Morneau. Then came the 2022 Freedom Convoy protests, when Trudeau controversially responded by invoking the Emergencies Act. A federal judge would later rule that Trudeau's use of the act was not justified. Overall, it appears that Trudeau is dealing with death by 1,000 cuts, as economic turmoil, taxes, housing, and many other issues mount against him and his government after nearly a decade in power.
Maybe he should consider not being the alleged most corrupt prime minister of all time. Nobody has had anywhere near this level of scandals, constant problems. Do you guys remember that Jody Wilson Gould? That was her name? She was like a native member of parliament who was like wanting to speak up about some of the corruption, and then Trudeau's like, yeah, you just gotta go because you did that. And she's like, oh, it was like a crazy thing at the time. Everybody just forgets about it. We forget about the charity stuff. We forget about the Emergencies Act because there are so many things one after the other that it's just like you can't even keep up with this level of corruption.
On the other side of the aisle, the Canadian Conservatives are gaining steam. That has been mainly due to the newly minted leader of the Conservative Party and leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre rose to prominence during the Freedom Convoy in early 2022, and shortly after its climax announced his intention to run for the Conservative leadership position, left vacant after his predecessor was removed following his election loss to Trudeau in 2021. Poilievre seemingly struck a chord with his confrontational style and vocal criticism of Trudeau's government. He raised significant amounts of money during his campaign for leadership and brought a record number of new members to the party. Poilievre has some classic right-wing policies. He wants to repeal the carbon tax, balance the budget, and loosen Canadian gun laws after Trudeau passed restrictions. But
classic right-wing policies. I don't know if really the only one that you could say, I guess, is the loosening the gun laws a little bit, but like balancing the budget is a right-wing policy. Like, is that just the thing that like if you're left-wing, you just don't care about balancing the budget? And the carbon tax is exclusive. I understand it's a cutting tax, but it's a made-up fake dumb tax that doesn't need to exist. So that's not even like a right-wing thing. Pierre, if he was in America, would be considered so left-wing it's not even funny. He would be like wildly Democrat in America. So I think it's so funny because Canada is such a left-wing country that they're like, oh, we're shifting right-wing and Pierre's the right-wing leader. Like, okay, let's listen to this.
Poilievre has also been more cautious to present as a moderate and avoid the political pitfalls that have beset the Canadian Conservatives in the past.
Those Canadian Conservatives, Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole, let me tell you this. They were not moderate. They were just left-wing. Aaron O'Toole in particular is a freaking dweeb, man. So, like, these guys were such left-wing conservative leaders. I don't think that was their pitfalls of being too right-wing.
For instance, he's in favour of same-sex marriages, something he used to be opposed to, and he's also said that he wouldn't reverse Trudeau's marijuana legalisation policies. When it comes to foreign policy, he's pledged to continue supporting Ukraine, meet NATO's 2% defence target, and support Israel in its war against Hamas. Poilievre has tried to present as a firebrand, aggressively attacking the Trudeau government, while simultaneously avoiding coming across as an ideological extremist. This has been an effective technique. Not only are the Conservatives 20 points ahead of the Liberals, but Poilievre himself has garnered a positive approval rating of +3, nearly 40 points ahead of Trudeau.
You know, it's kind of funny, like, when he became, like, tough guy, this is Pierre, by the way, when he became tough guy, he lost the glasses, and I want to know how that conversation went. Like, Pierre, you look too much like a nerd with the glasses. You got to get rid of the glasses. We'll get you eating an apple. You look tough.
Entertainingly, more detailed polling suggests that basically the only thing Canadian voters think Trudeau would be better at than Poilievre is hosting parties, while Poilievre enjoys a wide lead over Trudeau when it comes to putting up shelves, putting out kitchen fires, and solving escape rooms. So is there anything Justin Trudeau and the Liberals can do to change the tide? Well, to be honest, probably not. When the next Canadian election is held, likely in the autumn of 2025, Trudeau would be approaching 10 years in office. Incumbency fatigue is a near inevitable fact of politics, and most Canadians just want a new face and party to lead the country.
So I do agree that incumbent fatigue is a real thing that happens in Canada. It's a notorious thing. It just kind of flip-flops back and forth. However, in this scenario, it's not incumbent fatigue. When Harper, who was a great prime minister, got voted out, that was incumbent fatigue. Oh, we need a fresh face. We need a young guy. He wants to legalize marijuana, blah, blah, blah. So that was incumbent fatigue because Harper was doing nothing wrong. He helped Canada get through the financial crisis. He was kind of crushing. They wanted somebody new. Trudeau is one of the most alleged corrupt prime ministers of all time, who everybody hates. People didn't hate Harper at the time. He was just kind of boring and they had enough. Trudeau has got to go. He sucks. And by the way, you got to Axe Attacks, buy the shirts in the link below.
Perhaps Trudeau's best hope is to ride out the wave of unpopularity and hope that the economy improves and the Canadian public forgets about his missteps by the time the next election comes. Alternatively, Trudeau could resign and hand the party over to another MP. If this is the case, then many pundits think his most likely successor would be Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister of Canada and current Finance Minister.
If the Liberals do that, that would be one of the worst political moves of all time. Like, her approval rating is as low or lower than Trudeau's. I do not know how they think that she would be a good one.
However, even if Freeland is a relatively popular politician, she wouldn't have very much time to establish herself, given the election.
All right, these guys must not have done that much research if they think she's a popular politician. She's popular because she's on the news all the time, but I don't even know. Liberals are like, I can't listen to her talk. She doesn't answer any questions.
Election is only about a year away. In conclusion, Trudeau has a tough year ahead. While he's proven himself to be a more robust politician than people thought, with economic and domestic problems mounting, it's hard to see him winning yet another term in office.
Yep, I think this is going to be an incredibly tough comeback for Trudeau. I don't think there's any chance of him coming back because he's doubling down on all his horrible decisions, and the guy is just wrong on everything. But I'm a real estate agent in London, Ontario. Reach out to me in the link below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.